Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a different type of video and it was inspired by Julia Mazzucato here on YouTube. Sorry, I definitely just adjusted my camera, so I apologize for that. But this video is going to be my favorite eyeshadows from each of my palettes. Now, I think Julia's video was just her favorite eyeshadows in her collection, but I'm going through each eyeshadow palette that I own and saying my favorite shadow in each palette. This seems like it's going to be a forever long video, and this might be a little bit longer than my normal video, but I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes, but my collection isn't as huge as some people's. Like, I have a lot, but it's not ridiculous. Okay, so I have 21 eyeshadow palettes. Which is a lot, but there's definitely people with a lot more. Like, I personally know people who have more eyeshadow palettes than this. So I have them all piled up here. I have my notes taken. So let's jump right into the video. All right, so the first palette that I have here is the e.l.f. Mad for Matte eyeshadow palette. It is this little tiny eyeshadow palette. It's definitely like the smallest eyeshadow palette that I have. So my favorite shadow in this palette is this one right here. I really like this eyeshadow because when I just want to throw one shade all over my lids and I don't want to like think about what look I'm gonna do, maybe throw a little bit of a smoky liner on, I will go for this one. It works really well in the crease, but it also works really well to just blend all over your lid, and it's just a really nice neutral, I would say it's neutral, but it leans the tiniest bit warm. So the next eyeshadow palette that I have is the Zodiac palette, and this is the Kathleen Lights and ColourPop collab. This is the second collab that they did. I actually own all the ColourPop eyeshadow palettes that Kathleen Lights has made because I love her. So it looks like this, and my favorite eyeshadow in this palette is this one. This one is called the Gemini, and it's a really gorgeous gold, but with like a little bit of a green brown shift to it. I'm gonna insert swatches of all of my favorite shadows so you can see really what they look like, but I did a look when I first got this palette that it was actually a recreation of a look that Kathleen did. It was using like the Taurus and the Virgo and maybe a few shades from Dream Street, and then it was like a cut crease halo eye with this as the shimmery part in the middle, you know? I don't know what that's called. And it was beautiful. Like one of my favorite looks I've ever created. I'm gonna insert a picture right there of the look. And it's just a really beautiful eyeshadow. So this is the Kathleen Lights and ColourPop Dream Street eyeshadow palette. And this shade right here called Sweet Dreams is my favorite shade in this palette. It is a really gorgeous, like, light pink, but with a gold shift to it. And when you put it on the eye, it is just the most beautiful rose gold shimmer shade. Next up is the Too Faced Just Peachy Matte eyeshadow palette. I use this all the time. I think it is so pretty. My favorite shade in this palette is this one right here. It is called Peach Sangria, and it is this beautiful deep fuchsia color, and all the shades in this palette are matte, but some of them are like a creamy matte where they do have a little bit of something to them. They don't look like completely flat and matte. They have like the tiniest bit of the finest shimmer in it possible, and this one has like a little bit of like almost a blue shimmer in it, and I love it. The next palette was a splurge. It was a splurge palette. It is the Natasha Denona, what is this called? Sunrise palette. This is the first Natasha Denona palette I own, the only one I own, the first one I bought, and I want to buy the Love palette so bad. But my favorite shade in this one though is this one right here. It's called Aster, and I think it is the standout eyeshadow in this palette. It is this beautiful purple blue shimmer shade, and it just looks so beautiful on top of any eyeshadow that you put it on top of. I did a look one time where I put Glory, this hot pink shade, all over the lid, and then I put Aster on top of it, and it was so nice. I've done the same exact thing with Morgan, and I think also the same thing with Morning, and it just looks so beautiful, and it's so shimmery and perfect, and I love this shade so much. So now we are entering into my Morphe eyeshadow palettes. So the first eyeshadow palette that I have from them is the 25A Copper Spice eyeshadow palette. This one I actually was gifted. This was given as a birthday gift from one of my friends, and I think the one shadow in this palette that I could wear every single day for the rest of my life is this one. It looks like a lighter, like kind of silvery shade, but it's a very taupey color. I didn't know I loved this type of eyeshadow until I tried this one. It looks so natural, and it's a really nice everyday, really wearable type of eyeshadow that you can throw on with basically any crease shade. The next Morphe eyeshadow palette that I own is the 35F Fall into Frost. This one I actually got for Christmas last year. My sister got it for me. My favorite shade in this palette is this one right here. It is called Belladonna, and it is this really beautiful, just pink shimmery shade. It's almost purple. Like, I feel like it's somewhere in between this pink shade and then this purple shade, but I think it is really gorgeous, and I love, 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 love putting these pink, reddy, orange, what a good description, eyeshadows all over my lid because I have green eyes, and I feel like it just makes my eyes pop a lot. So the next palette here is the Jaclyn Hill palette. We do not condone Jaclyn Hill in this house because messy person. But I have to admit, this palette is so nice. I also got this for Christmas, but I got it like 2 years ago, like after it came out, you know. And my favorite shade in this palette is this one right here. This shade is called Buns, and I think it is just the most beautiful, like close to being red, warm toned. I wouldn't call it a transition shade, but I use it in my crease, and I think it is so beautiful. I don't know what it is because it looks like just your generic warm tone matte color, but something about this shade, I don't think I have another eyeshadow in my collection that is close to this shade. And then again, apparently I like collecting palettes from messy people because now we have the Morphe and James Charles eyeshadow palette. This one I also got for Christmas last year. My brother got it for me, and I do enjoy using this palette, but I feel like I don't get as much use out of it as I thought I was going to. But my favorite shade in this palette is this shimmery purple shade right here. It is called Artistry, and it is almost similar to Aster from the Natasha Denona palette, but it has a lot more like deep, rich purple to it, and the reflex in it are a lot more purple rather than blue. So the next eyeshadow palette is actually one that I got in a BoxyCharm, and a lot of people declutter their eyeshadow palettes that they get in their BoxyCharms, but all the ones that I've received so far have been really good, so I have kept them all. And this is the Storybook Cosmetics Fairy Tales like eyeshadow palette series, and this is the one in Little Red Riding Hood that came in BoxyCharm a few months ago. I don't remember exactly when it was. And my favorite shade in this one is this shade Peril, and obviously it is really similar to the shade Red up here, but Red has a little bit more orange in it, and this one I feel like has a little bit more pink. And this one also seems to have a little bit more shimmer in it, and I do really think this shade Red is really gorgeous, but something about Peril, I just like it a tiny bit more. The next palette is from BoxyCharm as well, and I was so excited when I got this in my BoxyCharm, and it looks like I literally have never touched it, but I have. I've done quite a few looks with this actually. And my favorite shade in this palette is Fireball. Now this is a true duochrome shadow. This is like one of the most gorgeous eyeshadows I have ever used in my life. It's the most beautiful like pink orange duochrome, and I love using this shade. Then we have the most recent collaboration that Kathleen Lights has done with ColourPop, and it is the So Jaded eyeshadow palette. I wanted this because I love supporting Kathleen's collabs, and she has like never put out a product that I feel like she doesn't truly love and believe in, and I think this palette is so beautiful. I did a whole video using just this palette where I did a week in a palette doing 5 looks for a whole week. Is this shade right here. It's called Ametrine. This one is a combination of these shades, Amethyst right here and Citrine, and it is a beautiful mauve matte base with these beautiful like gold yellow shimmers running throughout it. And I think this shadow is so good because you can use it as a crease color and you can kind of tap the sparkles out, or you can use your finger and blend it all over the lid and get those like gorgeous yellow gold shimmers all throughout it. So the next eyeshadow palette is the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette. Now I just did a video with this one too where I did a week in a palette, and before I filmed that video I did all my notes for this video, and I said that my favorite shade in here was Mercury, which is this beautiful deep teal color. But after filming that video, I think I'm gonna have to switch what my favorite shade is and say that it's this one right next to it, which is Nebula. This is the like glitter formula in this palette, and I was a little scared to use this because I'm not a huge fan of pressed glitters being in eyeshadow palettes, because no one is, because they're just, you're not supposed to put them on your eyes, so why would you include it in a palette? I mean, I still put them on my eyes because I'm gonna get use out of it, but if they're not intended for use on eyes, why would you put them in an eyeshadow palette? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But something about this formula is so nice. It's kind of more like a jelly formula, and so you don't get a huge mess when you put this on your eyes. This color is beautiful too. So this next palette is a random little palette that my mom got me for Christmas, and I thought I wasn't gonna enjoy it that much, but it's actually a really pretty palette, and I think I've only used it once, but I want to definitely use it more because it's very small, very curated, which is apparently what I'm into these days, but I think it is really pretty. It doesn't have the name anywhere on the packaging, but I think it is the Arctic Eyes eyeshadow palette, and it is the Sephora makeup line. And my favorite shade that I used in this palette when I did the one look that I've done is this one right here. It is, again, just kind of like a pinky red color, and it doesn't have a lot of shimmer in it. It's kind of like a satiny matte, but I thought it was just a really nice color, and it performed a lot better than I thought it was going to. As you will see in a moment, I have a soft spot in my wee little heart for the Urban Decay Naked eyeshadow palette. The first one I'm going to be talking about is the Urban Decay Naked Reloaded eyeshadow palette. My favorite shade, oh, please tell me I did not just dig. I didn't, okay. My favorite shade in this palette is this one. It is this beautiful, bright, corally, pinky eyeshadow called Retro. I think I haven't actually worn it this way yet, but I think this would be really pretty all over the lid with just this, maybe something really sparkly in the inner corner, and then a beautiful winged eyeliner. But this shade really does it to me. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam eyeshadow palette. I think every shadow in this palette has a purpose, and I love really purposeful eyeshadow palettes like this, but my favorite one is kind of unexpected, is this one called Glistening. It looks like it's just like a light gold, but if you look really closely, it has like a little bit of pink in it, and I think it is so pretty. I do use it as like an inner corner highlight, but I have worn it all over the lid before with like one of these lighter matte shades, and it's just a really simple, easy eyeshadow look, and I really think this is it's my favorite one in this palette. So now we're going back to the Naked palettes. The next one I also bought in, I think, like October, and it is the Naked Honey palette, and I did not think that I was going to enjoy this palette as much as I do. My favorite shade was actually Amber, and I don't know what it is about this like burnt orange shimmer shade with like a tiny bit of like darkness to it that I think looks so beautiful thrown all over the mobile lid. And that is my favorite shade in this palette. So the next one is the Naked Heat palette, and I love it. This like rekindled my love for the Urban Decay Naked Eyeshadow palette. My favorite shadow in this one, again, kind of random, is Cayenne. I feel like every time I use this palette, I always go for this shade, and it is really just like a generic, like warm tone, medium, matte, like crease color, but I'm so drawn to this color for some reason. For real, every time I open this palette, I use this shadow, so I guess it's my favorite. When I had the Modern Renaissance palette, Love Story, the shade Love Story, that beautiful hot pink. I always call it a hot pink. It's not really a hot pink. It's kind of like a deep fuchsia. Fuchsia? No, I don't know how to describe it.
I
like
think it is a fuchsia.
Deep like fuchsia, but like with a little bit of berry in it.
Yeah.
Beautiful eyeshadow color. And when I decluttered that, that was the only shade I even used in that palette anymore. I was like, I need to find another eyeshadow that is a dupe for Love Story. And I found something very, very similar in the Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette. Again, I was so excited when this came out because it was kind of in the color story that I liked, like the orangey red, like shimmery pinky colors. And I think they are not direct dupes by any means, but the shade right here called Bing, I think is as similar as I have been able to find to the ABH Modern Renaissance Love Story eyeshadow. But this palette, I also love this shade called Young Love. So this one, I actually have two favorites, and it is Bing, which is this deep fuchsia with a little bit of berry in it. It's matte. And then this one, which is basically the same thing, just a little lighter, and it's shimmery. This next one is the most recent eyeshadow palette I've bought, and I bought it right before I went on my eyeshadow palette and lipstick no buy that I am on until July. And it is the ABH Norvina palette, and my favorite shade in this palette is this color called Soul. This is truly one of the most unique shades that I own. I don't have a shade like this in any of my other eyeshadow palettes, and it is technically a matte, but it has just a little bit of a shimmery shift in it. But the shade Soul, something about it is so unique, and I love it so much. It is 100% my favorite eyeshadow in this palette. And the very last eyeshadow palette is truly the most recent eyeshadow palette that has been added into my collection, but I got it in BoxyCharm, so I didn't break my no-buy. That was like my one rule. I was like, I'm not gonna like get rid of anything that I am either A, gifted by someone in my life, or B, receive in a BoxyCharm. So that is the Ace Beauté Vintage Dawn eyeshadow palette. This shade down here, Cactus, is again, I think, a really unique shade to my collection. I don't think I have any other shades really like this. Maybe in the James Charles Morphe palette, but something like, I'm so drawn to this shade. It is this beautiful, true, like army green. I don't know where I was going with that. And I definitely want to do more looks with this palette and incorporate more of this green into my eye looks. That is it for my favorite eyeshadows in every single eyeshadow palette that I own. It definitely seems like I have a lot more palettes than 21, and even that seems like a really aggressive number of eyeshadow palettes to own. That being said, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Please don't forget to subscribe and maybe even like this video. Maybe, if you want to. Maybe, just maybe. That is it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!